afternoon, everybody. My name is Donald Wine, and I'm with the American Outlaws. And I just want to welcome everyone to this continuing series of interviews we are conducting with top officials from the U.S. Soccer Federation. I want to thank all of you for joining us today, and we are pleased to conduct these interviews as part of She Believes Week. We hope that everybody out there is doing well. I hope you guys are safe and healthy during this pandemic. And I know it's been a lot for all of us, but we hope that you continue to do your part to stay at home, maintain social distancing, and excellent hygiene, as the health and safety of all of you is our top primary concern. And I know U.S. Soccer feels the same way. For today's interview, we'd like to welcome two people who are going to answer questions submitted by our members. First, I'd like to welcome the general manager of the U.S. Women's National Team. She's a World Cup champion. She is a two-time gold medalist. And like me, she's an alum of Detroit Country Day School. Kate Markgraf, welcome, and thank you for taking the time to speak with us today.
Oh, Donald, way to bring up our high school affiliation. Go Yellow Jackets. I love it. I love it. Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And also joining us today is the current women's national team head coach. He just recently took over last October. Already, he's coached the team to an undefeated record and wins in the CONCACAF Olympic Women's Championship and the 2020 She Believes Cup. We have Vlatko Andonovski. Coach, we appreciate you joining us as well.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. We only have Kate for the first part of this, so for those of you out there, we're going to start with Kate and give her some questions so that she can hop off to tend to her other obligations. So, Coach, I'm going to ask you to sit tight, and Kate, we're going to get started with you, if that's okay.
Yeah, Coach, you're on the bench. There you go.
Not for long. Okay. So, Kate, U.S. Soccer is celebrating She Believes Week, and we just wanted to start with that overall theme. As the GM, you're a former player, you're a mom, and you're a role model for young women everywhere who are working to achieve their dreams. What advice can you give them, whether it pertains to sports or their career? What advice can you give them on how to move forward with those dreams?
You know, the number one piece of advice I always give is don't wait until you're ready. Be brave and do it when the opportunity presents itself. And you might fall flat on your face, but then that's the only way that you can measure yourself to see where you need to improve. So it doesn't take confidence to be successful. It takes bravery in the face of repeated failures. And it took me my third attempt to make the women's national team, failing gloriously the first two times. So that is always the biggest thing, is do it before you're ready. You'll figure it out when you get there. And then if you don't figure it out, you need to learn quickly and develop new strategies in order to be successful.
You just recently oversaw your first She Believes Cup as the general manager. Take us back. What was that experience like for you, and what does it mean to have a tournament like She Believes Cup where young women get to see their heroes compete against some of the best teams in the world?
Well, you just said it right there, that last part. The meaningful competition provides a wonderful game on the field. Sure, the scoreline may not be a blowout, but what it does is it not only provides players exposure to some of the best talent in the world against different systems, which is purposeful. We try to schedule teams that play differently so we can test our players. But more importantly, we get to show the fan base how much soccer has grown in this country, especially from when I played in '99 in the World Cup. I think the distance between our back line and our front line was probably 70 yards. That would never happen in today's game. So it's an opportunity for fans to watch the best athletes in the world playing against some of the best soccer players that are also fantastic athletes in a big setting. And that momentum builds, right? You go once, you get hooked, right? And that's the beautiful thing about the Outlaws, right? You guys provide the knowledge that mobilize the fans. And I can tell you, when I hear the chants and when I see you guys jumping, and in one case in Orlando, they sang the national anthem. I have 200 caps for the national team. Very rarely do I get chills listening to the national anthem, even though I've heard it so many times. I'm always proud. I always sing it. I had chills. In fact, I was sitting next to Abby Wambach and Tiffany Roberts-Sahadak, and we all were like, that was amazing.
Well, we're glad you like our singing. We were thinking about putting on an album, but we'll wait on that. We're not really professional yet. We'll get there. But
I'm
Speaking
buying
of
it.
momentum, yeah, speaking of momentum, we know that the April friendlies were obviously canceled due to the coronavirus pandemic, and the June window was also canceled. The Olympics have been postponed; those are now set for next summer. So now, what is your strategy for scheduling matches for the women's national team once this hiatus is over and matches can safely be played?
Well, we're very intentional about how our approach is, and we have gone through multiple scenario plannings. Like, if this window is canceled, what do we need to ensure that we see or play against or expose our players to prior to the Olympics? And that is how we approach everything. So we're always weighing many things: teams that play bunkers, teams that use the width, and we do data analysis to figure out areas of strengths of teams, and then we try to balance that in terms of our scheduling and our planning. So we are being very intentional with our time. You know, the productivity propaganda that happens when we were in the office and we had to be face to face all that time, that can't happen anymore. And so one way to look at this, and the silver lining, is that we now have an opportunity to really plan and make sure, because there will be no easy games that we want to schedule between now and the Olympics. We want to make sure that we're testing ourselves against the best.
I want to shift quickly to a big topic that's obviously on the minds of all women's national team fans, and that's the legal dispute between the players and the federation. We know that there was a legal ruling in that lawsuit, and with that ruling, fans are now hoping that the two sides can come together and work out a solution that will get everybody on the same page. Do you expect a quick resolution to that lawsuit, and what role, if any, will you play in those talks?
Well, I can just tell you what the phrase was after that ruling came out on that Friday night was U.S. Soccer issued a statement saying, we hope to sit down with the players to figure out a path forward. And I think a path forward is what everybody wants. It's just a matter of what happens. But I know the Federation is very keen to do so, because it's important to try to get the conversation, address issues, but also get the conversation back to, talking about soccer. Most of our days, especially in my role, I look forward to that day, but it's important to hear everybody. It's important to acknowledge everything that's going on. I'm not involved in that, and because it would put my role in a unique position, but I understand every side of it.
And obviously we're taking both sides here and looking at one side, but let's look at the other. How, as we as fans, how can we support that fight for equal pay and continue to, lead the world in how we compensate our soccer players?
Well, I think the biggest thing in general about women's sports is figuring out a way to monetize participation and monetize sponsorship and viewership. I think, and then you have to first get the fans, and then you have to switch the pyramid of the investment model so that sponsors, and not just women's soccer, but in every sport you see it, right? It's market realities. There are pay discrepancies because they're based off of revenue. So how can we figure out a way in which we can monetize the support and the groundswell that everyone has? And that's really the main goal in all of this. But it's a conversation, and the conversations need to keep happening.
I want to shift gears a little bit and move into the realm of youth development. And how does scouting younger talent change with the development academy going away? And how difficult is that going to be in the short term, especially in this pandemic when many of the youth national teams are on hiatus and you can't travel to see players live?
You know what I love about the American Outlaws is they're by far the most engaged fans and knowledge base of the programming offered. The questions that I'm facing now are very, very poignant. And I think with the DA shuttering, what that has done is it's created an opportunity to reset the table to figure out how to supply the pipeline of talent for the next generation of soccer players. So once the DA shuttered, it was how can we make sure that we are providing the best players, or the players with the highest potential, which is really tough to ascertain at the younger age groups, but how can we provide them the opportunity and scout them in a way that they're on our radar, and then we bring them into camp and provide them that educational opportunity. So it has caused us to redesign how we are looking at talent, and then how the mechanism of going out and scouting that.
And furthermore, in that line, what is your plan on the women's side to improve the success of the women's national team, the youth team, and to continue that pipeline of development and acclimation of younger talent into the program as we go forward?
Well, I think it's twofold, right? Is it based on performance, the result, or is it based on the field? Is it based on players that are being put in a difficult situation in which they have to solve problems at a young age? And are we giving them the tools to then solve it so then that can be scaffolded up to bigger differences in style plays and bigger decisions that they're going to have to make in real time? The hardest challenge that Vlatko will have is to identify the players that will be able to cope with the pressure and play the style and execute the game plan against some of the best in the world. And how can we do that at the younger age group? One way to do that is to make sure we're aligned in our approach and our philosophy and our style of play. So again, the silver lining of COVID is we were going to do this all of May, but obviously everyone would have had their attention in different places. But what we've been doing since COVID hit is having a weekly meeting with every single person on the women's side, including our data analysts and our video analysts, and we're coming up with positional profiles or just refining them and enhancing to where we think the trends of the game are going and how we will be best equipped to be the front runners of that, because we don't want to just win the World Cup. We want to create a dynasty. And with the incredible talent that we currently have, and Jill Ellis did a fantastic job of making this last World Cup team the most experienced team, regardless of age, that the US has ever fielded. Of the 3 World Cup teams I was on the 12 years on the team, all the way through up until the last iteration of a World Cup roster, that was the first time I've seen the young talent extremely experienced walking into that form. So when you're playing against France in the loudest stadium that probably any of them have ever been in, and obviously pro-France, not USA, they were equipped to handle that because of either their youth team experiences or because Jill had vetted them through the early stages of the cycle.
Yeah, that's a great point. And as we continue, the DA is now gone, and there's still this link between the Federation and the NWSL. How do you see the two entities working together to spur youth development and maintain the strength of the player pool?
That's a great question, and one that I hope that we can build a long-term strategy. But right now, it's making sure that the NWSL feels supported financially, but also with our players in order to build a stable league and to make it the best league in the world and one in which it attracts the best talent. Jennifer Marajan for a long time has been the world's best number 10, and now she is coming to Utah. Obviously, this is before COVID. And the fact that they are able to secure a player of that magnitude, along with many others, right? Kim Little's been in the league, who's a fantastic number 10, arguably one of the best in the world. Sam Kerr was in the league. Allowing our players that financial flexibility to play in a league and support domestically is allowing it to grow. And also it builds the domestic fan base, but also the domestic player pool. And the best thing about the NWSL is the parity. So I really applaud the owners for their approach into this franchise model, the single franchise model, or the single entity model, because what it allows is that now everyone is aligned and there isn't a huge disparity between top and bottom.
On the note of the youth national team, many of them are currently without a coach. I know we've seen some recent hires like Laura Harvey for the U20s. Is there a timeline, and I know it's probably shifted in the midst of the pandemic, is there a timeline from when you'd like to make those hires necessary to round out those coaching staff?
Yeah, whenever we can. I think when I took the job, it was in August. I had to hire a head coach first and then his staff to support him in his efforts. And then my 20s coach left and my 23 coach left. So even though the number of coaches on the women's side hasn't changed, the faces have. So I'm happy that I was able to execute that and get the talent that I was able to get with Matt Potter and Laura Harvey at the 23s and under 20 ages respectively, as well as Tracy Kevins, who stayed on and we were able to re-sign a contract. I think she's a fantastic coach for our 17s. We were in the step of hiring our 16s coach when COVID hit. And due to COVID, that was not going to be able to move forward. So as soon as we're able to get programming off the ground again, and we're in a position in which we can hire, we have already identified people that we find interesting and would love to have deeper conversations to start to fill out the rest of our coaching staff.
And the last note on the player pool, diversity is obviously a big issue. It's always one that is, one of the more popular issues of debate amongst our members. What is the plan to continue to highlight our diverse player pool and to have that diversity represented on the women's national team?
Well, I think you're already seeing that to a certain degree, right? And it is about the best player. It's not, that is the only metric to get on the national team is who has the highest potential and who is currently playing at the highest level that earns them a spot on the roster. And if you look at all our age groups, we are looking at ways to expand our net and identifying talent and creating the programming and educational platforms to give everyone an equal opportunity, because that's what it's most about. Ideally, one day it would be great if the pay to play went away, but as you know, it's pretty complex system and one very difficult to untangle. So what can we do to help support that? And those are areas that we're looking into and areas that we're continually exploring, because diversity allows diversity of thought, diversity of everything, and it makes everyone more well-rounded and also exposed to different things, which makes you more prepared in the moment when things are getting thrown at you, whether you're on the field or off field, to make the right choice on a more consistent basis.
A few years ago, there was a few players that went to play over in Europe. A lot of them played for a year or two and then came back. But recently, from leagues in Europe, there's been a big financial push to get the best players in the world. That would obviously include our players. Do you prefer our national team players remain in NWSL, or do you see an opportunity for stars and even budding talent to play overseas and still be in the mix for the national team?
Well, I think the NWSL is one of the best leagues in the world, if not the best, because the parity. I think what you saw from the World Cup is the United States was able to leverage what was being taught week in and week out in the NWSL, which was you have to grind out wins sometimes. It's not pretty. And what happens when nothing's working? Can you figure out a solution? And can you be comfortable enough to still stick to the game plan, even though the game plan hasn't worked yet? And that's what you saw the benefits of NWSL. That is the reason why players are coming here. I understand the draw of playing over in Europe. And, for some players, that might be the next step in their development, right? To be exposed to something else, to be exposed to the WSL, to be exposed to League One, right? But I think it's just going to be player dependent. But right now, I think our players are getting the greatest development, especially last year, by staying in the NWSL.
And one final question before we close out with you and bring on Coach. Can you talk about the fan culture for the women's national team and how you've seen it grow from when you started playing back in the 90s?
The fan culture, it's diehards and it's fantastic in the chanting all game long and the support that the women have. But what I love now is that the support's for all the players. And perhaps when I played, right, it was definitely players of a certain profile were the ones that everyone knew about. But now people know 1 through 23. Part of that social media, the players control their own brands, they're out there. But Tiff Milbritt for a good 2 years was the best forward in the world, but no one knew about her. That would never happen now. And that's what I love, is that everyone can identify with some player on the team or celebrate that player's success or that player's skill. And it's going to be different for everyone. But now there's a platform provided also by the knowledge that you guys continually provide as a vehicle of content, as well as operationalizing transportation or what have you to get to the games or just getting that crowd support. It makes it so that everyone can be a fan, but also it opens up the door to more approachable access to the team.
Yeah, definitely. We appreciate it. And I think that's going to do it. I think that's all the questions I have for you. So Kate Markgraf, General Manager of the U.S. Women's National Team and fellow Yellow Jacket, thank you very much for joining me today. We truly appreciate it. I know you have to head off to another meeting, but we're glad you can make the time for our members tonight.
Oh, I enjoyed it. Thanks for speaking with me, Donald, and take care. And thank you for all that you do. And thank you to all the American Outlaws now on this call for everything you do and supporting us on and off the field.
Absolutely. We appreciate it. We'll be back in the stands when we're allowed very, very soon.
I hope so. I expect it. We need it.
And as Kate signs off, I'd like to bring in Coach Andonovski back into the conversation. Coach, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Thank you, Donald.
Yeah, thank you for your patience. I want to begin with you by going back in time to March 11th. You were in the middle of a unique situation. During the final match of the She Believes Cup, the coronavirus pandemic forces the suspension of the NBA season, and it triggered a domino effect, which led to the suspension of almost every sporting event around the world. What was it like for you and the team in that immediate aftermath? And what were the steps that you kind of took to keep the team organized in those first few days?
So first, it was challenging. It was not easy because we didn't know what hit us. We didn't know how long is this going to be like. Is this going to be our way of life for the next for next month, 2, 3, 4, or is this just something short term? And then we're in April, we're back on the field playing against Australia and Brazil at that time. But once we realized that this is it, this is how it's going to be, the first thing that we thought of is like, we have to be creative to maintain the growth of the player, to maintain their form, shape, physical, mental, tactical, and make sure that we make the most out of it, coming out of this pandemic. So we formed several committees, several groups, task groups to implement different things. And I think that so far we've been on track, keeping everybody engaged as much as possible, and we use every resource that we can, and being as creative as we can get, from the high performance coach implementing physical training. The assistant coaches are on top of the players' technical training with certain videos and certain demonstrations in sessions. Myself, I do all the tactical training and as a team, in a team environment, obviously through digital meetings, virtual meetings, and then small groups, individuals, subgroups. We do positional tactical sessions. And then Kate also organizes the psychological meetings, or sports psychology meetings, which we had Adam Grant as one of the persons that spearheads that. And we just had 2 days ago, we had this incredible speaker, Admiral McRaven, who delivered an amazing message to the players and the staff.
So U.S. Soccer is celebrating She Believes Week. You just completed your first tournament as coach of the team. What was that experience like for you as a coach, and what does that tournament in this week mean to you?
Yeah, so the She Believes tournament was a great experience for me, and I was so happy to be part of it, as well as the Olympic qualifiers. But She Believes, we had a chance to face against some of the best teams in the world, with Japan, Spain, and England. And another good thing is about that is, it's not that we just faced 3 of the best teams in the world. We also faced 3 different styles of soccer, and Kate elaborated on that a little bit more in detail, how we choose our opponents and what we're trying to gain. And that was incredible experience. And at the end of it, when you come out with 3 wins in 3 games, it just makes it more enjoyable.
Absolutely. You kind of walked into an unprecedented situation when you became coach. You took over a team that's the 2-time defending World Cup champions. You're a few months into the job, and so we've talked a little bit about your transition. What has been the hardest part of the transition for you?
I mean, getting to coach this team, it's a great challenge. It's a big challenge, but it's a challenge that everyone is aware of. Myself, coming into this job, I knew it's going to be a challenge, because it's a team that wins constantly. They're successful. They won 2 World Cups, the best team in the world. But it's the challenge that I have personally embraced, and I'm excited about it. I'm just thrilled about the ability to work with the best players, because to some degree they make the job a little bit easier, because they're so good in terms of what they do, their competitive nature, and pushing to be the best version of themselves individually, but also as a team, is just enjoyable. It makes my job enjoyable, and being part of it. Now, getting them to the next level is not easy, because the room for improvement is small. If we were number 30 on the rankings, then we're gonna have a huge room for improvement. But now we're looking in those little things, little details to improve on and get better.
You mentioned the players and just that challenge of taking them on. Part of becoming the coach is you get to implement your style and your sort of philosophy, but also you kind of look at the past to see what worked and what didn't. Was there anything that you saw during the previous few years that you felt was important to continue as you began, whether it be a playing style or even just which players work better together on the field?
Right. There's so many good things about this team and things that worked in the past. And we cannot forget that this team is a two-time back-to-back World Cup champion, right? So as much as we want to say, if it's not broken, don't fix it. We also need to know that what worked for us in the past is not necessarily going to work in the future. So that's why we look at different things that we're absolutely, or parts of the game that we're absolutely the best in the world, and we want to make sure that we maintain that and stay the best. But there are also things that we wanna improve on. And when we say improve, it's not just or change things just to change because I want to be different or I want to implement something different. It's because we wanna progress, we want to improve, we want to evolve, and the game is evolving itself. So if we don't follow the evolvement, then we know teams are gonna catch up. We know teams are gonna match what we do. But one other thing, and Kate mentioned it, it's not that we just wanna follow the trends. We want to be trendsetters. We want to be ahead of everyone. We want to be the ones that are gonna set things and create things and be innovative, so everybody else tries to follow us.
And we're now in the middle of a new cycle. The cycle has kind of been altered a little bit. The Olympics were supposed to be this year, now it'll be next year. But with each cycle comes those new challenges that you mentioned. And some of those are in the form of these other teams in the world. Which teams do you see as the ones most likely to be contenders in 2023 along with our women's national team? Do you see some of the regulars, or do you see a team that's maybe not there yet, but by 2023 you expect them to be right at the top?
There's several teams several teams. There's so many good teams around the world, and obviously we faced three in the She Believes. They're all good teams, and Japan being one of the younger ones, and they had a change of generation. Spain is another one that is interesting, that definitely makes a big push towards the top teams in the world. But we cannot forget Brazil. They're always going to be contenders. And then Australia is a young, energetic team that can be interesting in the next couple of years. We had a chance to play Sweden. Sweden is always organized, disciplined, and we know what happened in the last Olympics. So there's so many good things. Germany went through a rebuild phase. I forgot about them. We were supposed to face them in June, and that was going to be a great matchup. Actually, it was a matchup I was excited about and looking forward to. And there's about 10 teams that are really good that will be contenders. But in the same time, we're gonna do everything possible to make sure that we stay on top.
So we are on top. How do you possibly keep that edge and maintain it while other teams try to give you their best shot every single time?
I mean, first and foremost, this team has a culture that I've never seen before in my life. When I walked into this environment, you're just poised with competitiveness, with mentality, with grit, with resilience, with hard work that you don't know anything else. So with that, along with what I was saying in the previous answer, when working on those little things, on those details, that small things that make big differences, we'll just keep on improving and keep getting better and keep staying on top.
You mentioned the Olympics. We know that this year would have been the Olympics. It's obviously been postponed. How does that now change your strategy with regards to the veterans on the team, as well as integrating those younger players into the mix?
Yes, I don't think it's going to change much. I don't think it should change much. And the only difference is going to be, I feel like I'm going to have a little bit more time for preparation. I'm going to have another year to implement some of these little things or details that we're talking about. But ultimately, the best players will play. And Kate said it earlier. What we're focused on is the performance on the field. Who is in the best stage at the moment, and those are the ones that are going to play.
So we want to shift to the youth national team for a second. You know, most of them have been put on hiatus. We talked with Kate earlier about that. During this pandemic, what have you done to maintain contact with those programs to not only implement the plans that you have for the philosophy of how the national team program should go, but just for some of those players who you're looking at to eventually move up in the national team?
Yeah, so first, we've done a lot in this last 2 months, and the alignment of the system, the alignment of the national teams from top to bottom has been one of the biggest projects that we entered into, and I'm very excited about it because we were able to create these workshops with the national team staff and the senior staff and the youth national team staff from different ages, and we've been focusing on the standardizing the style of play. So when you go and you watch a U15 national team, women national team at least, and you watch the senior team, you're going to see the same style. Obviously, the quality of the players, the quality of the execution may be a little bit different, but the style will be the same. The DNA will be the same. It will be you can identify the traits between the teams. We we also work on standardizing the positional profiles. So what a defender or a center back for a senior team looks like, that's what we're gonna have on the youth national team. So we can create new Becky Sauerbrunn, and we can create new Alex Morgan and new Megan Rapinoe and Julia. So that's why we started standardizing the positional profiles, and we've also been integrating the youth national team players and with the senior national team players. So there's one thing that we did with this position profile discussions is I'm actually leading those tactical analysis and discussion. So we have certain positions, certain players, like let's say defensive midfielders. We have Juilliard, Andy Sullivan, Morgan Bryan on the call, but in the same time, we have the defensive midfielder from the U23, the defensive midfielder from the U20 and U17. So now in one virtual meeting, we have 8 to 10 players, different ages, discussing the profile, just to help integrating the younger players within the system, and also help them understand what it takes to be a player on the best team in the world.
A couple more questions for you. You know, fans are kind of wondering, you know, who the future of the team is when we go to 2023 and even 2027. Who in your mind are players that you see making that leap to being the best in the world? Not like, I mean, obviously our team's best in the world, but what players do you see making that step to kind of being the leader of the best?
I mean, that's a tough question. It's hard to predict because there's so many quality players. You look at our midfield now, you know, with Rose Lavelle and Julie Ertz, and then Sam Lewis and Lindsay Horan. I mean, those are all young players. They're experienced, but young players. They all have the quality to make a difference. Crystal Dunn is experienced in the young players, and we can't forget Mallory Pugh and Tierna Davidson. I mean, 2023 is the year for them if they keep on developing the way they are. That's the year. And then we have Andy Sullivan, and I'm just thinking of the Sophie Smith. You know, these are exciting young players that already have experience. They've already been playing games under pressure that will be exciting to watch them play in the next big tournaments.
I know we're looking forward to the next 4 to 8 years as we continue to try and defend our throne every single time we take field. Coach, we have one final question for you to wrap up our time together. what would you and the players like to see from the fans, and what can we do now and going forward to continue to show the support that you guys need to get the job done on a nightly basis?
Oh, so before going, what I would like to see going forward, I want to say I've only been on the job short period of time, 6 months, 10 games, and I have to say the experience that I've had in the last 10 games have been absolutely incredible. It's just different when you're on the field and you hear the chants and you hear the sound of the fans. I mean, I feel like I want to play. That's how I feel. And then obviously when we win and when we make the victory lap, when we go around, it's just different feeling. I don't think I have words to describe that. And I'm just thankful for that opportunity. And I want to thank you guys for being there for us. But I would ask you to just please keep supporting us with the same passion, and keep growing the game, recruiting new fans, and keep demanding excellence from our team. Okay, we wanna be the best that we can be.
Absolutely. And like I mentioned to Kate, as soon as we're able, we'll be back in the stands to support you. And even if we're not able, we'll probably figure out a way to do it. So, Vlatko Andonovski, I'd like to thank you as well for joining me today. We really appreciate you taking the time to answer questions from fans. And I hope you stay safe up there in Chicago whenever it's safe for us to venture back to stadiums. We'll be there. So until then, we thank you, and we appreciate you coming on.
Thank you very much, and I hope everyone listening and watching is healthy and safe, and just stay safe. And looking forward to see you back on stadiums.
Absolutely. And for all of you guys out there, we would like to thank you for being valued members of the American Outlaws. As we continue to be united for progress, we're going to keep these interviews coming. We are trying to set up dates with Brian McBride, Will Wilson, the CEO, the interim U.S. Soccer President, Cindy Parlow-Cone. When we have these dates, we'll be sure to let you guys know. We're looking forward to those conversations. Stay tuned for our social media. You guys will probably follow them at American Outlaws on Twitter and Instagram, and the American Outlaws on Facebook, as we continue these conversations, and we want to give you guys a chance to submit questions for our next interviews. Until then, for Kate and for Vlatko, I'm Donald Wine with the American Outlaws. Thanks once again for joining us, and stay safe out there. We love you, and we will see you soon, guys.